Hey there, I'm Lance.
And I'm Jeremy.
And we are Hard to Master, where we take a look at games that are
hard to master.
Such as...
Today we're going to talk about Obsession by Kayenta Games. Not only Obsession, the base game, but Dan Halligan was actually kind enough to send us the Upstairs Downstairs expansion and the Wessex expansion. So we're just going to do a very, very brief overview. We've seen different videos and stuff as far as how to play videos of the game, kind of a playthrough. Things like that can give you even more information that we're going to kind of glaze over before we get to our thoughts.
Yep.
So
more of an opinion video.
Yeah, so with Obsession, you're actually one of, in the base game, 4 houses that has different components that will be in this box. You're going to have family member cards. You're going to have specific meeples that you're going to be using throughout the experience. You're going to have different reputation markers. You'll also have a few starting buildings. There'll be a few other things depending on if you have expansion stuff that you can put in here, but you're going to use these components and you're basically using these buildings. You're going to activate them, which will give you a resource or reputation, different things. In addition to that, you're going to flip it over, which can increase scoring for future rounds. You're trying to, in the base game, just meet a requirement of having the most amount of points per type of building by the end of that round. The one thing is it is a little bit of randomized because you're going to have 2 of each type of cards, and the buildings and the building types will be either essentials, services, estates, prestige, or sporting tiles. So when you're buying these buildings and you're activating them, you're trying to get a majority so that when that scoring event happens, you will have the most points in that scoring event. And if you do, not only will you get a victory point card, but you're also going to get the favor of one of the Fairchilds. You can either have Mr. Fairchild or Miss Fairchild. And you would bring them into your hand, and then you could use them for their benefits throughout the game. And what does that mean? Well, these cards are going to have a symbol up here. This is one of the Fairchild cards. And up here in the corner, it has its symbol designating that. A family card would have a crest right here, which matches the crest that's on your component box. In addition, down here, you'll have victory points. It could be positive, negative points. Down here are the favors of that specific card and person is going to give you. So for instance, this one has 3 lion symbols, and that's going to give you 3 reputation, which you would move the marker up on your board, trying to increase that. Down here in the corner, you'll notice that there is a meeple, and it's a certain color. Some may have no requirement. Some will require you to place the meeples, which are kind of like resources. You're spending those workers as resources to activate the card. They're maybe chauffeuring that person around or helping them with the event, because you're basically hosting these events at your estate.
Yeah. And while that meeple is doing that, you can't use it to play another card. You have to wait for that meeple to refresh, which takes 2 rounds.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to go into expended service and move over, and after a couple rounds or a round or so, it's going to finally make it back into your available servants box.
Fits with the theme of the game.
Yeah, I mean, they're out doing work, and so you have to wait for them to get back before you can send them off to run another errand.
Right.
So basically, you're going to have this hand of cards, starts with a family and some casual guests. You can also get prestige guests, which are going to have a higher requirement as far as reputation. But as long as you have that requirement, or pending some abilities that may let you utilize that as far as events or some other actions on cards or things that could, or actually supplemental staff, which we'll talk about with one of the expansions, that may let you host an event with them a little sooner than maybe you could with your reputation. So all in all, you're going to do that after so many turns or rounds. You're going to have these scoring events, and then at the end of the game, whoever has the most points ultimately is the victor of the game. And that's the gist of it. There are coins that you can use. Pretty much all the things you're using, though, are coins, reputation, workers. I mean, that's about all your.
There's not a whole lot of resources in this game, but it is a resource management, action selection,
card
hand management.
Yeah,
game.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff like that. And so that's the base game. The base game is a whole bunch of tiles now. All the tiles fit in the boxes. The second edition, which we were sent, holds everything. It holds the expansion, both expansions. It fits everything perfectly. This box, and then there's still even a little bit more room. This box has all the tiles for the game, not only the base game, but additional expansion tiles, and it also has promotional tiles that are in here from a promotional set. The game can add an additional player, not by adding the Wessex expansion. The Wessex expansion will just add another board and another house, but you would still replace one of the core families to utilize it. When you get Upstairs Downstairs, though, you gain an additional family. I believe it's the Howard family. You'll gain an additional family, and they will actually allow you to play with a 5th player now. And so you could add more players by adding that expansion in. So that's basically all the Wessex expansion is going to do while we're on it. Is it's going to add a couple more bonus rooms. It's going to add the cards and things that you would need to use for the Wessex family.
And real quick, I don't know if we said it already, but each of these houses are a little bit different. They have some slight variations, so they're not symmetrical, they're asymmetrical, but not extreme differences to make one more powerful than the other.
It's little things. So like one is going to give you an additional family card that you can use. One is going to give you an additional footman, which is a white meeple that's able to be used. One's going to give you 300 pounds, which is three money discs. 300 pounds because everything's in hundreds. Wessex is the toughest that I've found to play with. It's more, most of these are instant benefit or bonus that you have when you play. Wessex, you do have something in the beginning, but you can't really utilize it until later on because you're gaining an additional building, which could either be a sporting tile or you could take the essential tile, but it's a level, I believe, 2. So I can't use it off the bat.
Get your reputation
I have to build up that reputation before I can use it, but I do gain other buildings. So it is a little bit tougher, I found, to use than some of the base factions. And so it's not necessarily my favorite. It is a tougher house to use, though, but it does add to the variety of the game and what you can use when you are playing the game.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So let's go ahead and get into our thoughts on what we think of the base game, as well as some of the expansions, the things you can add into it to spice up this game real quick. So my thoughts on just the base game of Obsession here. I really like the mechanics and the blend of the mechanics with the theme. It really does sort of feel like I'm this prestigious family that, well, at the beginning of the game, not very prestigious. Your reputation is in the dumpster. You need to really kind of build yourself up, and you're doing that by holding these events and inviting these prominent people to your estate. And it really sort of feels like you're putting on these events and using your staff, your workers, to show people around and making money, building up your reputation at the same time. So I enjoy that mix of it. Action selection is one of my favorite mechanics, and that's what really kind of grabs me with this game, is I'm choosing which type of event to hold or which type of tile to use. And by using those tiles, I'm getting points, or maybe I'm sacrificing some points so that I can get money to do other things. I really like that blend. It does have a bit of randomness that I'm not super fond of, and especially when I'm drawing cards out of the visitor deck. I can't remember what that's called. The casual or the prestige deck, where you have two different types of visitors. You've got your casual people who are probably not going to give you as many benefits.
They're usually like level 1, 2, I don't think 3, but maybe 3 level prestige. So they're easier to get to your benefit to host.
Yeah. And then you have your higher prominent people, which are harder to get involved into the game because you have to have your reputation really high to use them because they're, pompous and they don't want to come to your low level event. You need to be an important person for them to want to come and pay attention to you. But they'll give you a lot. So there's a lot to work for when it comes to that. But what I found to be something that I wasn't super fond of is that there's a lot of cards, I shouldn't say a lot, but there are some cards in those decks that are just negative, that don't give you a whole lot, and it costs reputation to use them, or they just kind of clog up your deck, and you can't cycle back through your deck just willy-nilly.
It's your great Aunt Bertrude that you don't want to come to your house.
And she just sticks her nose in there.
She's
and
like,
you can't get rid of her.
Oh, your mom sent me this invitation to come, so I'm coming.
Yeah.
-3 points, but I'm going to be there.
It sort of fits the theme, but gosh, does it just kind of really, it aggravates me, and not in a good way. I really would have preferred not having those in there and it just being a positive thing that just kind of gives me what I need to keep moving forward in the game. Now, I will say, not jumping ahead, some of the expansions help to mitigate that. So we'll come to that here in just a second. But Jeremy, what are your thoughts on just the base game?
I mean, I like the base game. The theme for me is not the most inviting for me. I'm more of a, horror theme, like Zombicide or something that's
exciting.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't even have to be that. It doesn't have to be horror theme, but it could be other stuff. Pride and Prejudice is not really, I mean...
It's a little bit more laid back.
Sorry, the rom-com is not the first thing I'm going to gravitate to. The one, I will say, the thing I like most about this game is the puzzle of finding the tile where I can use the cards to the best ability, because you're going to have some tiles that require gentlemen, specifically gentlemen. You'll have other tiles that will require ladies, only ladies, and then you'll have some which say gentry, which would be either or. You just need to play that many cards. And then you'll have family, which are your starting family cards, and they're the only ones that can utilize them. And some will give you additional benefits if they go with the prestigious guest to this ball, not a lousy, measly peasant. But I really like having that requirement, and it is tough at times. And one thing you can do, which we haven't talked about, is when you can't play, you pass. So when you pass, you're going to get to do some stuff, and you're going to get those cards back, which will allow you to have them over again. And that is nice. And making sure, because you don't want to have 3 or 4 cards and you just don't have anything you can do because they're all dudes. And, your tiles that are going to really benefit you need ladies.
Right.
You can only do exactly what the tile says. If it says 4 gentlemen, you have to have 4 gentlemen cards,
or it has
and
to be your family members,
and be able to meet the requirement on the card of, do I have enough valets or footmen? So I love the challenge of mixing the card and the meeples and the requirement with the tiles. I love that. It is tight at times and it is unforgiving at times, and you have to pass, and you don't want to pass because you want to get this so you can get this and buy this, but by not doing that, you had passed, and now Lance, I don't know how, but Lance took the tile you wanted, or this happens and that happens. So,
and that's more likely to happen.
That's the best part of the game
when you have more people involved in the game.
Yeah.
And so you do have to, you do feel that stress of needing to figure out that puzzle, like Jeremy's talking about, because somebody's breathing down your neck, and they're going to pass you up in reputation and get the right tiles that will work for them. So that's definitely a factor, and that's a fun thing with the game. I do agree with that.
Going with your randomness, one thing that I think is random, and it's random, I mean, there's random things in the game, and that's fine. At times there's ways to refresh the market, so you can get more tiles out to see what you want. There are ways to draw more than one card to kind of pick and choose a little bit. But the objective cards can be tough for you if you get certain cards that require you to find certain buildings, and you don't ever see those buildings because you have this big bag of tiles. Look at all these tiles.
Yeah.
Not all of them will be in the game, but probably 80% of these tiles are going to be in the game, and it's going to make it hard to find specific rooms, and so
it's hard to make sure you have the money at that specific time to be able to buy that tile.
and luckily there's on most of the tiles there are multiples, so you could see another one later, and you're going to start with several objective cards. You're going to get rid of some, and then you're only going to score 3 at the end. You just want to hope that you have some, or find ways from victory point cards or different things to get more, because you don't want to get stuck with a bunch of cards that you can't fully meet. You maybe have 2 of the buildings, but the third one never comes out, and you kept that one hoping that you would find the last one. Everybody's taking meeples, so you have to get rid of that card because you're not going to get the 10 meeples from the main supply that you can use a butler to get. So I think that randomness there is one of the hardest pieces of randomness. It ties with the market and the buildings and the cards, but I think that if you're just trying to match those objective cards, that's the hard. I
will agree with that.
I think that's the hardest random thing to match. I think being able to wipe the market when you're passing, or like I said, looking at 2 or 3 or however many cards to find that will not be as random as just you got these objective cards. It's really hard to get more objective cards from like victory point cards and stuff.
Well, so let's talk about what some of the expansions add, because when it comes to this issue of there being luck of the draw with the tiles and the cards, I feel like the Upstairs Downstairs expansion helps to solve the issue with that quite a bit. So much so that I would almost say, if I'm going to play this game, I don't know if I want to play it without the Upstairs Downstairs expansion, because I feel like that is essential. So what I'm talking about there, you have more ways to increase the number of cards you're pulling from the visitor deck. And with that, you're hoping that you can get cards that will do you better than the ones that are negative. You've got special workers that are going to...
supplemental workers will help to do those type of things. Like, I don't have the card to show what the specific names of them are off the top of my head. Oh, here we go. The head housemaid here, she will actually let you search or draw an additional card, depending on how you use her, to look at the additional card and choose one of them. So that helps to defeat some of that randomness we're talking about when you're only drawing one card, because you could use her for supplemental aspect and gain that additional card to use. The cook will at times, give you reputation, but she'll also allow you to
be able to
utilize the cards or the buildings, the event basically, that 1 to 2 levels above what your normal reputation is, because you're cooking. It's Martha Stewart. You're cooking this fabulous meal for people to come. Martha.
I didn't really think of it that way, but yeah, I guess you're right.
Or whatever it is.
But that helps you get your engine going.
Yeah, you have your hall boy. He can substitute in. You have your worker here. This useful man. There's a thing as a useful man.
He's useful.
Useful man. He can actually help wipe that market or do things like that. So I think that the expansion, the Upstairs Downstairs expansion, like Lance said, for me, I think it's a must too. I don't think, because not only does it bring in those people, it also brings in this board, I'm pretty sure. And with this board, you get a second side. So normally you have these theme cards, which are the ones that are going to match these different types of buildings, and whatever randomly comes out, that's what you're scoring. I'm not fully opposed to that. I like the guessing, because maybe you don't know the Fairchilds that well, and you don't know, what their tastes are. You're just kind of guessing. So thematically, I'm okay with that. But I'll tell you, using this side, I think is more enjoyable if you don't want that randomness aspect.
It's a more strategic game.
Because you just keep going around this board activating events, and you do that until somebody's reached max reputation, which means you're going to be using the higher reputation markers. And then once you get to max, the game will essentially end, and you'll see
it's a bit of a
who
race
has
experience.
more points. So, because you're gonna, at the end of the game, you're gonna get points for however much reputation you have gained. So that also helps with that. But I agree that having the Upstairs Downstairs expansion, I think, is a must, because not only does it allow you to play with another player, it also adds those supplemental characters, which are going to make things, I wouldn't say forgiving, because I don't think it's a true forgiving. I think it just makes
it more accessible,
makes
and
it
usable,
more. Yeah, I mean, it makes it more usable, but it just, I mean,
you still have to be very on top of your game and figuring out the puzzle to be efficient.
Yeah, because it's going to make it so you could maybe use that card with the cook or use that building, but you can actually, you don't feel like you're just, you know, you got something you can't use, and it's just negatively affecting you, unless you use the character that can discard that card. Yeah. Which she may come up, depending on how many times you pass, or if you find another one, not super often.
So yeah, all in all, I really enjoy how the Upstairs Downstairs helps to mitigate some of the randomness with the base game. It also, I think, influences the market a little bit better, and you're able to purchase things a little bit easier because there's the more tiles to look at. They're cycling through faster than in just the base game. So it sort of even influences the speed of the game. It speeds up the beginning portion of the game, and it feels like that you are getting more accomplished, and it's not. And I don't want this to sound bad. It's just, it doesn't feel like there's a drag to the first half of the game. Whereas in the base game, without that expansion, it does sort of feel like I'm really just working. Money. Yeah, I'm just working for the end game in the first base, the base game of that. So I really enjoy that. Let's talk about the Wessex real quick. What do you think about that?
Like I stated earlier, the Wessex just adds the additional house, which has a board. You can store all the boards in this, so when you're putting in the box, so you don't have to get rid of this box. Like I said, everything fits in the core box now if you have a second edition. Again, I thought this was a harder faction to use, and I didn't enjoy it as much because everybody else is getting something they can use right away. And I'm playing catch up from the get-go. Yeah. And with that randomness playing catch up, it really made it even harder because I can't gauge sometimes what I'm going to get, and then I can't use it on top of that, and I didn't have the money to start to get something that I could use better. I got a tile that I could use later, but I've exhausted my tableau here before I could even use that.
So really, if you're looking for a strong challenge and you're playing against somebody who's maybe an entry-level person that doesn't know the game too well, that might be something to include for yourself. Yeah. So,
real quick, I did play solo. Now I only want to play one game solo, and if you know me, you know what that is. I love it. But I did play this solo. I did like the solo. It tells you, how many points you're trying to beat the bot character, which really doesn't do a whole lot. You'll roll the die. The die will tell you what you're going to remove or do. And then at the end, when you're scoring, you're comparing these based on the card that came out to see, if they won that time or if you did, trying to get a certain point total at the end. So like I've said before, I mean, it's good, it's okay, but it's not really my type of solo. It's not my type of solo. Trying to reach a certain score, I like win or lose.
Yeah, I do too.
Survive or die type of experience. Yeah. In solo.
And I think we should also mention that maybe you've already noticed that some of the components here are a little upgraded.
Yeah, I do have the
stickers here.
I do have the meeple stickers, like from Levity Games. I get a lot of their stickers. I think they're great. Vinyl stickers, they stick on there. They fit great.
Look different.
Especially for this game, I think they, if you're someone that's not huge into the theme, that's going to really help. I mean,
makes it a little livelier.
To me, even though it's not my favorite theme, it does draw me in more because I can see that this is a butler, this is a footman. They have personality to them even more than they did before.
Way to put it. Yeah.
And so, and they're not super expensive. on Etsy. If you're interested, we'll probably have a link in the description.
Now, that's not to say that the game itself isn't well produced. I do want to point out here that you've got your boxes, and the boxes have printing on them that really just kind of makes the theme come through on this game, and it really does fit with the time period and the elegance of all of that.
And with everything fitting in the core box, I mean, that's a huge plus for me. I love when everything fits in one box, and I don't have to have all these separate boxes, and usually I combine boxes and throw them away, and then if I ever sell the game, then I have people that, all right, where's the box? That box didn't cut it. Sorry, this one, everything's going to fit in the core box, so even if you toss the upstairs downstairs box, keep this with all your boards in it, it all fits, and it's not like, hanging up way high, so that doesn't look normal, and no one should have a problem with that aspect if you...
So let's get to our scores for this particular game. I'll go first, and I do want to throw out there that my score is just going to be reflective off of the base game experience. As I've already said several times throughout this video, I do feel like the upstairs downstairs adds a lot to that, but I'm going to keep this as simple as possible and just tell you my thoughts on my score for the base game. And for that, I'm going to rate this game a 6.6. It's one that I like. I don't know that I love. There's a little bit too much randomness, as I've mentioned, with the market and the cards for my liking. I do enjoy the mechanics that are at play here, and what is essentially the game is enjoyable, and that's why I feel like with the changes that you can find with the upstairs downstairs, it makes it a whole lot more enjoyable. But as just the base game, I'm going to rate it 6.6.
And I think it's funny because when we first reached out about Obsession, I thought Lance was going to like this game more than I would, to be honest.
Real quick, I do want to interject and throw out there, this game is not super complicated. It's not a hard, rules-heavy game, and I do think it could be one that you might be able to have some success playing with casual or non-gamers. Love to hate, that's what we're all about. So in that regard to what Jamie's referring to there, I think it could work. I'm not going to say it's going to work 100% of the time, but I think it could work.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a long game. I mean, it's going to be 60, 90 minutes usually, depending on who's playing and how you play games. But I really thought you would have a higher score than me at this. But I like the connection of having to have these specific cards and these specific meeples to activate those cards. I have to have it before I choose my room, and that tightness of it's got to be there. And if it's not, I got to not fully waste a turn, but I do got to waste a turn a little bit to pass and get this. And with the expansion, it does change the pass schedule, so you could do a little bit more when you pass, so it's not as much of a burden. Going off the base game or with the expansion, for me, it's the same score. It's not my favorite game, but I really do appreciate that major thing. That's a big thing for me, the way that you have to have everything lined up. I love it to be tight, and when you can't, because you don't have one specific worker, which happens, or you have all dudes and no ladies to go to this event, and you really want to do that, you can't. You either have to pick a different tile, or you have to get the cards back and get ready for the next round, and hopefully someone else didn't scoop in and take what you wanted. So I love that part of the game. It's placing the worker on the meeple on the card. I love it. So for me, the score is a 7.5. Again, it's not my favorite game, but I really do like what the game does. I like how it's put together. I even like I said, I even like the random draw at times. I just don't want to play that every time. I would like the more strategic game of playing to a higher reputation. I do love the supplemental characters. I would probably add them in every game personally, but I don't think you have to play with them, especially if randomness doesn't bother you in a game. I don't think you have to play them. They will increase the complexity a hair, but it doesn't make it super complex because you added in these additional meeples. You're adding in, 4 or 5 meeples. So really just 4 or 5 different abilities, which they each have a couple that you can choose from. But in the solo, like I said, was good if you're a solo gamer and you want a game where you're trying to beat points. That's some of Lance's favorite solo games. Yeah. He just didn't get a chance to play the solo like I did. So My score is 7.5, and I'm pretty firm with that. Both
All right.
ways. Expansion, no expansion.
Well, there you have it. That's our thoughts on Obsession and some of the expansions that go along with it. Leave us some comments down below. Let us know what you think about this particular game. If you like the video, hit the thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to be notified of all of our great new content. I'm Lance.
And I'm Jeremy.
And we are Hard to Master, where we take a look at games that are
Hard to master.
We'll see you next time.
See ya.